Hello and welcome to the Tinker Cards video gallery. Today I'm going to just play with ink and I'm using a favourite technique of mine, which is just using my shaving brushes and just blend inks to create a background. So what I've done here is I got my piece of card and I got a post-it note with a circle punched in it. So I'm going to just colour that in with some yellow to start. That's going to be my sun. So let's just pick up some colour here and just add a little bit. As you can see, it's there and it's quite visible. So let's do just a little bit more into one corner to give it a bit more depth. Yep, that's that. So that's the yellow for the moment. We come back to yellow again. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this mask, and I got my circle here, the same size, which I'm just going to use to mask my sun off, because I'm going to do my sky now. And normally I just try and do some yellow, but I think this time around I would quite like to use a little bit of blue. So as you can see, I'm using Stampin'Up inks, and the one I used for the sun first was the Daffodil Delight, and now I'm using the, oh gosh, what is it called again? It's from the brights ones, it's the Pacific Point. I find that the bright range, they seem to be best if you want to blend the inks. The subtles, sometimes, no, they just don't blend properly for my likings. So I'm just going to use a little bit of the Pacific Point here and just come in, and I want it to be darkest at the top. Just let's do that. And I'll put another bit along here for my background. So next I'm going to use a little bit of pink, and it's going to be the Melon Mambo. Put the Pacific Point away because it's probably one I won't come back to. So just a hint of Melon Mambo, sort of around the sun here. Just take a little bit off before I start. Just a little bit like that. And then next I'm going to come back in with the yellow. Just a little bit along here. And covering quite a bit of the pink as well. So there's just a tiny bit, so I'm quite happy with that. And the next is going to be a green. So I'm just going to lay down a couple of colours of green. For the first, I'm actually starting with the certainly Celery, which is the lighter one. Just take a little bit off there and just maybe even partially cover some of the yellow with it. Just do that. So I'm just covering the bottom here for that. And then next I'm going to use some Wasabi, which is a slightly darker green, to get a bit more depth. I'm coming in from the bottom here. Right, so that's pretty much that. And now I'm sort of looking at my hills. So I'm just going to add a little bit of the Wasabi here, just to give it a bit of definition, as you can see. And I'm going to do it here too. Just a little bit, you don't need much. There you go. And then I'm just going to pop one just here and just a teeny bit. There you go. So you go lighter to give the illusion of depth there. Just pop a little bit in the corner here. I'm not quite sure you'll be seeing that once I've finished with it, but just a sort of some faint distant hill will be quite nice. I just want another one somewhere in here, just a little bit. Let's just do that. Yeah, you don't really see it, so let's leave it at that. Just now I'll come back to doing this again a little bit. Yeah, let's leave it at that. So I can remove this one here, and what I'll do now is, it's quite bright, so I'll just use my brush here and just slightly go over it again to sort of blend it in, give a sort of more of a hazy type of feel to it. Right, so part of me thought I'd get some trees in here, but I'm not so sure that would be such a good idea right now. I think they might be a bit too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my distressed floral swirls, and I got one particular one in mind that looks a bit like grass. Put my brushes to one side. So here we go, where's my ink? And next I'm going to use some Versafine ink to stamp my border, and I'm going to go for like a few colours, a bit sort of colourful in this, I think. Going to use some Imerial Purple and some satin crimson red. Let's just see what comes up. So I've got a couple out. I'll start with the red. And I'm just simply popping them up here. And then again on the other side. So I'm slightly turning this for the here. There you go. It's just starting to frame a sort of like a little type of landscape, really, I think. So I'm just going to go lower here. And I'm starting to add another couple in. So with the generational stamping. That's that. and slightly turn it to give it slightly different feel. So let's just do another one to the side here for the generational. And another one here. So you're starting to see that it's the depth that you're already getting with this. I'm just going to see if I've got another swirl that I might want to use instead of the one that I got right now. I think I'll use the little one here for the lilac-y colour in the forefront. Let's just clean the first one off because I'm just going to use the same stamp again. The same ink. Oh gosh, I'm rambling, sorry. It's early in the morning and it's New Year's Day. It's my first card for 2015. I hope things can only get better. Right, so I'm just going to use this. Okay. And the lilac-y colour. So I got this small swirl from the Distressed Floral Swirls, so you can just play around with them. You can turn these quite well. To get a different aspect really. And if you do a sort of like stamp with sort of lighter and darker colours using the generational stamping, you're sort of starting to get the illusion of space and layers. And let's just do that here. So I'll leave it at that for the moment. I might come back to this again in a little while. So let me just have a look at my sentiment that I wanted to go in here, and it's from the Typographia range by Stamplorations. So I want this to sit about here, sort of in the middle something. Do some, draw a couple of birds on. Maybe even pop it here in black. It needs to go lower, doesn't it? Yeah, something like that. And it's going to be stamped in black anyway, so that will stand out quite well. So this is just more to see for me now which stamps to use next. I'm not so sure I want to go around with the whole of it with the Floral Swirls, so I'm just going to see whether I could do something using the Trendy Leaves here. Do a little bit of a leafy pattern. So let's get some green out for that. Get the light and the darker green, and that should be it. So I've got some Olympia Green and some Spanish moss. I'm going to start with the Spanish moss here. And I'm just inking up part of my stamp because I'll only use the little leafy bits to come in. again. Just go around. Yeah, normally I tend to use yellow for this, guys. So this is the first one, just trying to add a little bit of blue to it, making it a little bit more colourful. So that's the Spanish moss, and now I've got the Olympia Green, which is a slightly darker green. I'm just going to go straight over that with and just add a couple of other green bits in, not too much, so the really sort of the darker ones to just sort of come in and highlight a little bit of the foreground really. Oops, so pop that stamp to one side, just come in here. Actually, I'll pop a couple of leaves just coming up around at the bottom as well. That makes it, I think that would go quite nicely and give a really good frame here. Just do that and that here. So I'm quite happy with that now, which also means I'm not going to have to come back to the lilac-y colour for more depth. So these are my inks, they can just go for the moment. So they were the Versafine ones, and if you use Versafine you don't have to wait for the for your dye ink to fully dry in order to get a crisp image really. And they quite nicely overstamp as well, sort of they sit on top of each other, whereas dye inks do tend to want to blend and they want to mix unless you dry them beforehand. So it just makes for a speedier for speedier progress really. Oh gosh, yeah, it's been New Year's Eve last night and the neighbours had a party. Well, we did have fun too. And actually that's a bit unfair saying they had a party. No, they didn't have a party, they just came back and late at night, and I could sort of hear them a bit, but they were just normally talking. Right, next I need some black. And I think this is where I'll probably wait a little bit. I'm sort of sitting on the fence. Shall I just do it in black? Or shall I actually emboss the sentiment in black to make it more visible? I think I'll go for embossing. So let me just put my leaf away. I'll get my heat tool out. And I'm going to dry the these off first, because the embossing powder will just stick to it all. This is where I probably should have embossed first. Let's just see. That feels pretty dry now. So fingers crossed this is going to work the way I want it to work. If not, it's going to end up in an almighty mess and I've got to start again, but never mind. Let's just see, I've got my embossing buddy here. That might just be quite a good way of ensuring that it's dried off as well. Hardly ever use it, to be honest. I used to do lots more embossing and I just haven't done much of it of late, really. I'm not quite sure why. It's just something where I sometimes think, oh, I've got to get embossing powder and I've got to get this out. And it's just being probably stuck in a rut, really. Okay. So this is my sentiment. That will just go quite nicely here. Yeah, that does need embossing really. So let's get my embossing powder quickly on this. Okay, my little brush, that's all right. So let's just get that back into the container again. So this is where I tend to layer up for stamping with paper. I've always got a stack of older paper underneath, and then occasionally I just throw them out. So that's the embossing powder here. So let's emboss this. Okay, that's done. Right, but I now feel I've got to highlight something. So what I'll do is I'll get the Pro markers on this. Now what colours? I need a dark colour in there. It's not the Pro markers I'm going to use actually. Just see what I got. Let's do these two. Let's just see. Just going to go with this now, see what it turns out to be like. So I've got the tinge markers here, and I've got raw umber and deep yellow. The deep yellow is actually more like an orange, really. Yep, so you can see that a bit better. And I've got to do this. Oh, that looks as if these should tie in quite nicely with the greens that I've used and the colours that the Versafine inks that I used to stamp around the edges there. Right, so this is this. All I need to do now is get a marker pen and draw in some birds, and I think I'll pop them in to go along there, or shall I just get my stamp that I got? No, I'll just draw them in. So let's just see. Couple in there, just sort of smaller ones, slightly more in the distance. Right, so let's see. I've got a base card here. I've always just pop that on a white base card. So that's pretty much what it would look like. I might just pop a couple of sprinkles on. So let me just get my glue, stick it on and just go with it. Come on. Okay, so right, so let me just have a quick look whether I want some sprinkles to go on here for some added detail, and then we should hopefully be ready. Just get that glue off which I smeared here. Let's just see, I'm not so sure about any pearls or something, so I'm just going to see if I've got any sequins that would work well. No, it's going to get too busy, isn't it? Yeah, that's not going to work. Let's just try and see. with something brighter. Yeah. No, I think this is the finished card. Okay, so it's basically just building a very simple landscape and using ink blending and then just framing it with some of the lovely stamps and get your sentiment in, and then that's it. Okay, hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching and have a lovely day. Bye.